Our world as we know it. That's a little presumptuous, don't you think? We assume we know anything at all. We know nothing. This world has so many unsolved mysteries. And if we don't even understand this world, how are we supposed to comprehend an ever-growing one such as Berserk's? If you've been dead your whole life, you may not be familiar with the concept of Berserk. Berserk is a manga written by Kentaro Miura, famous for such works as Berserk. This manga started an entire almost 30 years ago, and to this day only has one anime adaptation. Berserk is a vast abyss of lost information. Not lost because we as a following lack the ability to process it, but lost because we can't study anything further than what the author has given us. Kentaro Miura has hidden the world of Berserk in a dense fog of confusion and enigma. And that's why it's continued for years and years to be so god-danged interesting. Today we're going to explore some of the known and lesser known worlds of Berserk, eventually leading to the biggest event in Berserk's history. Let's dive into the dark, gloomy, fantastical place that Miura has so expertly crafted in Berserk and the Blast of the Astral World. So now that you're undead, you can rise from the dirt of the Berserk world in the shape of watching this video. The following is based on my interpretation and is largely influenced by the research and educated assumptions over the years by members of SkullKnight.net. So, one of the most confusing events in Berserk has to be the transformation of the world. Remember that? Remember Femto? From the outside and with no further digging, the reader can only assume that what happened during this event was pure nonsense. Or, given the reader assumes the advanced writing ability of Miura-sama, he or she simply accepts what happened as gospel and refuses to question it, at risk of being struck down instantly by our savior. But, when looked at more intensely, the entire event can make an enormous amount of sense, given the known parameters of Berserk. Let's look quickly at what appeared to happen. The big baddie Ganishka shaddily pieces together what we Berserk fans know as a bejerito, but not a natural one. As natural as bejerito can be. No, not one of the little egg-faced stones that somehow teleports a person to a hell of hells, but one created through wicked acts and fiendish follies. Ganishka activated it in an attempt to outmatch Femto, and from it, spiraled into a powerful insanity instead. Femto then appears on his now tree-like head, as does the Skull Knight, and SK swings his weird egg-made sword at him, hoping to strike Griffith down. Femto somehow turns that into a fissure that cracks open the world of magic, and so nonchalantly spills it out onto the mortal plane. Sounds fake, but okay. From the very beginning-ish of the story, we are shown there are at least two planes of being. The world in which Guts lives, and the world of the angels. The world of the God Hand. The world of us humans, and the world of the little known. Elves, trolls, gods. These worlds generally aren't meant to interact with one another, yet are always near one another, only whispers away. Some astral entity may be flying by your ear right this second, only you can't perceive it, and it may not even perceive you. Your child-brained mind doesn't see into the astral realm. You exist in only the plane of the physical. You're a filthy casual in terms of dimensional sight. But it's really not your fault, so don't take it to heart. You are an idiot, though. In Berserk's world, you could train yourself to develop this sight, such as witches do, training their minds to delve into the astral plane. Some, on the other hand, are forced into it. Some, like Guts and Casca, are thrown into multidimensional existence in an instant. They were both given a permanent tie to the world of the non-physical by that of the cursed brand seared into their skin. Remember that? Remember brands? Their egos, or minds, were sent deeper, past their known physical world, and unto the cusp of the astral one. This is known as existing in the interstice. The interstice is where recently deceased beings' egos reside after their physical bodies die. They may linger here if unsettled, or they may move further on into the astral realm, eventually reaching the point of no return. But tangible beings, like Guts and Casca, can exist there as well, but to a much more limiting degree. Guts, as well as his sword, further dips into the astral realm the more astrally tied beings are slayed by him, but will always be tied down by the physical plane. Until he dies, of course. So hey, how does the astral plane work? There's a missing dimension in the world as we are able to see it. We have up and down, side to side, forward and backward, right? Well, imagine there being another, a fourth way to move. Moving without going forward, down, left, right, backward, up. Go deeper into the space you're already in. What? You can't imagine moving deeper into the same exact space? Well, think about your own mind. You sit there, perhaps motionless, yet you can traverse your mind at will. You can go deeper, deeper, and deeper still. Perhaps so deep you forget about the initial 3 dimensions entirely. Well, the astral plane works in a very similar vein. In all actuality, you can think of your mind or ego as a part of the astral plane. The deeper into the astral plane you go, the more your mind can see, the further your mind can go, even while in the same physical space. Space begins to lose meaning entirely the deeper your ego goes. Corporeality as a concept begins to disappear, and ideas become the only thing that remain. Although, there is a limit to how far our physically tied minds can naturally traverse. Or is there? Guts encountered the vortex of souls. Remember that? Remember the hell toilet? And that's assumed to be one of the deepest layers of the astral plane. Well, in fact, while yes, the vortex is connected to the deepest part of the astral plane as we know it, it is extending itself to a layer Guts can comprehend while still holding his physical body. The Bayolet breaks the normal rules of tangibility. Under all other circumstances, once an entity is deep enough into the astral plane, tangibility simply doesn't exist anymore. Something in the deep recesses of the astral world may not be allowed to enter the physical world under natural means. If, before the world changed, you took an astral being from its home in the astral world and teleported it directly into the physical, it would not have a form perceivable to us mortals. A further example of this is, well, every member of the God Hand. During his induction to the God Hand, Griffith's mortal body was abandoned. Femto had to steal a physical form just to be able to walk among us mortals again. Remember that? Remember this? Remember Casca's baby? So what does having a physical form mean anyway? A literal, tangible, touchable form? Well, yes and no. When we use the word physical in Berserk, one may infer that as the only world where objects are physical, and therefore the only place things can interact or touch one another. So how then could Femto, an entity I just expressed as being purely astral at one point in time, seemingly touch Guts and Casca at the time of the eclipse as if he were very, very physical? Well, sometimes, like touched on before, physical is a relative term, but the way it's used is important. Physical, the way I've been trying to use it, has simply meant the world as we humans inhabit, and the corporeality of the beings in it. Tangible, on the other hand, it means something touchable, and this can apply to the shallower astral beings, like Puck, Trolls, and Slan as a bunch of intestines. But whoa then, how the hell did Femto F up Guts and Casca so bad? Isn't he deep, deep, deep into the astral realm? Well, he is. He needed to move them to his domain in order to do so. Femto, before obtaining his new body, could not have touched Guts while being in the physical, mortal world. Only when Guts comes in meeting with the God Hand's domain through the usage of a world-bending Beherit does it become possible to directly interact with one another. This is obviously a very important exception to the tangibility rule in the world of Berserk. The Beherit is the only way it's known to be possible. Perhaps this interstice is the only time the God Hand possess relatively tangible form. Less is known now whether or not the God Hand can manifest themselves further than seen in the Cliffith, or if the other four are still stuck forcing the manipulation of the world's surroundings to produce a workable form. While Slan's form we saw her take at the time of the eclipse could not be manifested, even in an interstice, her mind was still able to travel far enough into the shallow recesses of the astral world to manifest something tangible. And not just something tangible, but something powerful as hell. When Slan slashed Guts in this moment, she not only wounded him physically, but also astrally, due to them being in an interstice. This is why the wound still affects him. Not only the body of Guts was wounded, but the idea of him as well, his astral self. Slan may not be able to manifest any form whatsoever if no place such as Cliffith existed. The most of her or her God-handy brethren could produce would be something along the lines of what we saw atop the tower during the battle with Mazgus. Unluckily for Guts, Slan, as well as the rest of the God Hand, are now less restricted when it comes to projecting themselves in the astral world. An area which they once needed in order to manifest in any meaningful form may no longer be required, seeing as the entire world is now an interstice thanks to Femto. But as far as their full forms go, I would still imagine a Beherit would be required, unless they all underwent the baby shell adoption procedure Femto did. So that brings us back to the world change. What happened here? Well, maybe if you didn't know before this video, you've now pieced it together. It's really not that tough once you assume enough. We all know Ganishka went through the initial Bayolit process to naturally become an apostle, but to go again? To enter into the deep astral realm once more, yet without the proper means? Well, one's mind can only handle so much. Especially when the second Bayolit is more of an abuse of the astral world rather than a natural connection to it that a natural Bayolit seems to produce. Ganishka, bringing back God knows what from deep within the astral plane, holding his unnatural tie while existing among us physical beings, was bound to explode at one point or another. And so, Femto made it happen where it did. Causality had Femto and the Skull Knight meet atop Ganishka, and the Skull Knight's Yobimizu no Tsurugi, aka the Bayolit sword, the one holding the power of spatial manipulation, not unlike that of Bayolits themselves, was used. tearing straight into the astral world. Femto, using his own power, redirected this onto Ganishka, unleashing his unnatural, compounded astral energy into the physical world, changing it forever. So now, the shallow layers merged with the physical. There is a larger interstice spread throughout the world. While it is a larger overlap than ever before, making the one in Enoch Village chapter seem like a paper cut, there are still deeper depths to go, where less tangible beings reside, looming, unable to move to the shallow end, an end which now exists for all of us to see. There are obviously some leaps a reader must make in order to follow, and will likely learn more about the worlds of Berserk in episodes to come. Miura only gives us pieces of the puzzle that are crucial, leaving the rest of the world of Berserk still so full of mystery. And that's pretty berserking cool. Thanks for watching, and may the God Hand bless you with a fist bump.